Hello and welcome to another episode of Words with Myself.
On the last episode, we spoke about killing the ego and letting go of yourself. You might be at a point where you have decided that it is time to let go. It's time to move on. Yet, you're not quite sure of how to actually go through the process of that. Change tends to be easy to identify and difficult to execute. Oftentimes, we know what it is that we need to change, or we can identify the behaviors that are harmful or what is harmful in our lives. We notice the patterns, but we don't know how to break out of the cycles. The reason that so many people struggle with this and continue to struggle with it, even as they feel like they're putting in a lot of effort to change, but they don't feel like real change is happening. We may stop one pattern, but then another emerges. It might be someone that smokes, who then gives up smoking cigarettes and ends up eating lots of food. When you treat the symptoms, something else will take its place. And we do this with our emotions as well. If we feel sad and we judge that to be a negative emotion, then we try to make it a happy emotion. But then we get anxious or we get depressed and it pops up somewhere else. Or it might be that you're in a situation where you feel disrespected, or someone made you angry, but you put on a brave face and pretended like it didn't bother you. But then, later in the day, you find it exploding out of nowhere or popping up or manifesting in a different way in like some stomach issues or something like that. Any time you try to treat your own symptoms, you end up in this game like a dog where they're chasing their own tail and they're trying to catch it. And, that they feel like they're getting closer, but then it eludes them at the end. And, it never really comes to full fruition because it can't be done. You may try to stop your bad habits, for instance, but you will notice when you try, they will pop up in some other way. You will make up for it in some way or another until you address the root cause of where that habit come from. Why do you do it? If you do it because it's something that's comforting to you, or that relaxes you, or makes you feel good, or makes you feel happy, or distracts you, if you just try and get rid of the habit, something will look to take its place. And you'll want that. You'll want something because you can't not have the care and the attention and something that makes you feel good. If you remove it, that doesn't mean that you're going to replace it with something better. But you need to, because otherwise something equally as bad or worse will take its place. You may discover that all of the people in your life currently don't really actually have your best interests at heart, and you need to let go of those relationships. That doesn't mean letting go of having relationships. So you need to replace those relationships that weren't optimal, that you didn't feel fulfilled in, with people that you do have a connection with. You cannot just leave a hole. So any time you're trying to fix one of these symptoms, not only do you have to look at the root cause, but you also have to do that within relation to actually building something up, making a foundation that does support you, that does benefit you, that you can rely on and you can go to. Because if the only time that you're feeling bad, or you're feeling angry, or you're feeling upset, or you're feeling like you want to escape, and you only have these bad things to go to, of course you're going to go to them. And at the very best, you're not going to force yourself away from them and have nothing to go to. So just be upset or miserable or depressed because you are lacking in something that you know you need, but you are denying yourself. And it's not about denial of self. It's about aligning yourself with things that are actually serving you. Things that are actually enriching your life, fulfilling you, and bringing you closer to where you want to be. This is still taking a symptomatic approach, though. Because even though you are addressing symptoms, for instance, like we take the smoking example, you might stop smoking and you might start running, and you feel like that's a substitute. So instead of every time you go out for a cigarette, you go out for a run instead. And you feel like, oh, that's a healthier alternative. And you might think, well, that's great. Now I've identified that if I take something bad in myself and turn it into something good, then it will be better. And you set about to do that in your entire life, and you try to fix yourself. You try to fix everything, get yourself into a way where you can be like, I'm perfect now. But we know that perfection doesn't come. You end up pursuing an ideal and always falling short of it. So you feel depressed because you cannot live up to your own standard. And you sink down into the loop. You feel like things are worthless. You become depressed and feel like there's no meaning to anything, and that you can constantly climb the ladder, but you will eventually fall down because you are ultimately playing a charade. You are pretending to be something that you are not. You are pretending that you don't feel the way that you feel. You are pretending that you aren't who you are. And by pretending, it never comes to light. And when it never comes to light, it forms your shadow. And all of these things exist in this shadow. Your doubts, your fears, your judgments of yourself, your shame, your guilt. It all lives here. All of the painful memories, all of the trauma, everything mixes in together and we try to ignore it. So we cannot let things go that we don't bring into the light. They need awareness. They need you to shine the light on them, which means that you need to turn and confront the monster. And this is a thing that a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to face the monster under the bed. They want to pretend like it doesn't exist, but it does. And you can't remove it because it's part of you and quite a fundamental part of you. You may judge it and condemn it, but it is part of you. And by rejecting it, you consequently keep it alive. You maintain it. You make sure that there's always a place in you for it. There's this locked cabinet inside of you where you stuff everything down. And we've all been doing this over the course of our lives. We've been building up this closet where we put the bad things in, the feelings that we don't want to feel, the thoughts that we don't want to think. We have this filter in our brain that judges everything that we think, everything that we do, everything that we say, and we categorize it. And, there's some things that we don't want to look at, and there's some things that we want to try and hold on to. So we become this biased judge of ourselves. We rule ourselves under dictatorship. We tell ourselves that there's only some things that we can think, only some things that we can say, only some things that we can feel, only some ways we can act. And we govern ourselves and maintain this structure of exactly who we're supposed to be, who we are, and how we're allowed to exist. That is what you have to let go of. So the question becomes, how? How do you let go of this identity that you have spent your life building up? And that is a very, very difficult question because it's a deeply personal one. It's something that relates to you specifically, and only you will be able to figure it out. Only you will understand what you contain inside, what you are keeping in the closet, what monster it is that you have to turn and face. What are you afraid of? What you're scared of? What's this bad thing that's going to happen? Or, what's this terrible experience that you're going to have if you just open yourself up fully? If you allow yourself to be completely you, to unlock what terrible thing is going to come out in the process of this. And that fear, that is what is keeping it in the closet. So you cannot fear it. You have to understand it. That doesn't mean everything that you think is going to be good. And it doesn't mean everything that you feel like you need to do, you should do. It just means that you authentically accept yourself, where it comes from, and you don't deny yourself. You say, I accept these needs, I accept these wants, I accept these desires, I accept my fears, I accept all of these parts of myself that I don't feel like I align with. I accept them in me. But I'm not going to allow them to rule me. I'm not going to allow them to manipulate me into doing things that don't align with me. I'm going to make different choices. And that's what it comes down to. Making different choices. Because when you make different choices based on this information, so the first step is awareness, becoming aware of the things that you do, becoming aware of why you do it and where it comes from, getting as much information as possible. But you're only understanding yourself, you're understanding an ego. So that's something you have created. That's not going to be the entirety of who you are, even if you try to understand yourself. This self is something that you have created. So understand your own creation, challenge your beliefs, challenge who you think you are and why you do the things that you do. Really interrogate yourself. Look at yourself and say, why am I doing these things that I'm doing? What is it in me that is driving me to make this happen? Does this serve me? Because if you know that the answer is no, then you're already there. You understand that you need to change. You're just having difficulty in actually changing. But then you can't say that, oh, I don't know what's wrong, or I don't know how to get better, or I have this, or I have that. Because there's something that you know you need to do that you're not doing. Whereas if you say that you don't know what is wrong, you don't know why you keep doing these things, you don't know what's going on, then that suggests that you haven't interrogated yourself enough. You haven't taken the time and made the space to understand where it's all coming from, why you are making these decisions. But I don't think most people actually fit in that category. I think the majority of people understand themselves. They know why they do the things that they do, and they know that they're not really meant to, or that they shouldn't, or that there's a better way, but they don't feel like they can do that or that they want to do that. There is some underlying force that they feel out of control of, something that is making these decisions, and it's subconscious, not conscious. But the problem is, as soon as you are aware of it, you cannot have it to be subconscious. So if you know that you are doing something that you shouldn't do, and you've brought that into your awareness, now you become the watcher. You see it happen. You see yourself do that. And you go, oh, I've spotted it. I've noticed that pattern, this thing that I do. So now it's not a subconscious process. Now you have brought that subconscious process into your consciousness. And now that we are conscious of this behavior, we can then begin to act differently. We can try to make different choices. And it will be difficult. This is never a case of that change is easy, that it's easy to be living the life that you want, that it's easy to be in alignment. It's not. It's a very difficult process to get there. It's very difficult. It is. You have to strip away a lot of everything that you know. You spent years trying to build this comfy blanket of identity, this person that you're okay with, that you don't mind the fact that you are who you are, even if you might not be happy. You'd still rather be in your situation than any other situation, because you may say that you wouldn't, but then you would change. If you are truly in a situation that you cannot get out of, then you wouldn't really be depressed. You would have something that you knew needed to be fixed. You would know that it was situational. You would say, okay, this is really bad right now, but this is because of this, and I need to change this. And then you might do that for a while, but if you change everything and you're still feeling like that, or you change a lot of things and you feel like that core unhappiness is not changing or going away, then it's not external, it's something internal. And until you accept that, until you say, you know what, I've done things for many years my way, I've tried to do things my way, and they're not what I think it is. It's not the experience that I thought it would be, and I'm unhappy, and I feel depressed, and I want to change, but I don't know how to change. That's a different circumstance. That shows one of two things, that you're either unaware or you're afraid. Unaware, meaning that you don't know what is actually wrong with you. You don't know what's causing this. You don't know why you feel the way that you feel. Or afraid, meaning that you are scared to change. That even though where you are today might not be who you want to be, or you don't feel fulfilled, or you feel like things are not the greatest, but they're not the worst either, you will end up putting yourself in a comfy hell. This is exactly where depression lives. That is the realm of depression, is the comfy hell, where it doesn't seem comfy. You'd think, oh God, well, it can't be comfortable to live there, but it is, because otherwise you would change. You would change if you weren't afraid of what that change would mean. So even though you are depressed, you are still more likely to accept your current circumstance than risk disappointment on something else. And that might be the fear. that you've constantly tried to do these things and you've constantly been disappointed. And you're worried about putting it all on the line again and whether it's even worth it because nothing ever works out for you. But then that's a limiting belief. You have to get out of this habit of forcing yourself into this negative thing. Like, you have decided that you're unhappy, but then people spend so much time and effort in justifying to themselves why they are that way, why they feel that way. They want to be that way, and they will argue that they don't want to be that way. But they do, because the alternative is something scary. The alternative is not safe. And rather than confront an unknown situation, this present discomfort is a tolerable level rather than this unknown thing, which could be vastly more uncomfortable, vastly more painful. And this is why depression feels so monotonous and so helpless, because you feel like you can't step in any direction. There's no clear path. And anything that you do is ultimately not enough. It's not real change. We're still holding on to the same old things, the same old trauma, the same old habits, the same old patterns. And that pain over a long period of time, when you've suffered for so long, it's familiar. It's safe, it's comfortable, you're aware of that, you know that very well, and you're very intimate with your own suffering and your pain. But the thought of introducing new pain, of letting that go and detaching and opening yourself up to new wounds, that almost seems like impossible to somebody who is depressed. But it's not impossible. You are fully free to let go of all these things that are holding you back. It's not easy. It's not a simple, easy process. It's something that's very difficult, but it's possible. And what is the alternative? The alternative is that you accept this suffering and you just stop trying to change. You just say, okay, this is how I'm going to be. I'm choosing this life, and I'm okay with that. And if you are okay with that, then great. But we know you're not. We know that if you were okay with it, then you wouldn't have this aching, null feeling, the feeling that we need to change, that something needs to change, that something needs to happen, that we can't keep living like this. You wouldn't have that drive if you didn't know already what you needed to do. The depression part is that you're not doing it, that you haven't let go, that you haven't moved on. You're in the in-between. You're stuck. And it's a very, very difficult place to be. You may try to deny it. You might try to escape it. For instance, a lot of people, are alcoholics, and they try to escape it and black out and pretend like they're not like that. They try to forget their suffering. But sooner or later, everyone learns that it catches up with you. And if it doesn't catch up with you, then it plagues and impacts your entire life. It sucks the life out of you, and it makes things not real. You're not really living. You are just waiting. You're waiting for something to change, or you're waiting to die. You're waiting for something. You're waiting for something to come to you. And the universe is waiting for you. You need to make the change. You need to accept that you are not happy with where you are. You need to clear out those closets. Make space. Understand what's in them. Understand why you put it in there. Try and figure out if there's new insights or new lessons to be learned. Maybe that thing that you thought was terrifying and really, really scary that you stuffed in that closet, maybe you can see in hindsight how really it worked out for the best. That it made you who you are, and it brought you to learn things that you needed to learn. And it's difficult to accept that. But once you do, once you set yourself free from that guilt, that shame, that torturous attitude where you're just constantly berating yourself and keeping yourself down and reminding yourself of all of this bad stuff that happened to you and that will happen to you and is likely to happen to you, and all of the ways that things can go wrong and life can go bad, and let go and breathe and look around and realize that in this present moment that things are okay. Remind yourself that life doesn't have to be this way. We can work through our issues. We can make different decisions. We can make different choices. And we can learn to live again. Thank you for listening.